Mangwana Nimale Lepo Vukenjani, Klekwas Vanave Africa. Welcome to Africa Good Morning, the news and current affairs show bringing you everything you need to know happening on the African continent and beyond. You are joined by Ashimberi and Glenora Shupura. I would like to start the show on a rather somber note, sending my condolences to the Kutsia family and the Brewer family as they lost 3 family members and 1 family member respectively this weekend after the rugby games. May their souls rest in eternal peace. Good morning, Lenora.
Good morning, Ashwan. Thank you for bringing us in. Now let's take a look at what you can expect in today's broadcast. Spanish doctors perform first robotic heart surgery on teenagers. South Africa recalls J&J cough syrup sold in 6 African nations after suspected toxicity. And Israel reopens airspace as airlines cancel flights due to Iran attacks. We'll also be talking to Talen Gore, who will be filling us in on the latest news in Zimbabwe.
Hello, Namapia. Ons is very kus en ons is lus.
The way that eats the shark.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so
yes, please, today you make sure that we are fed.
sorry,
Let's get into our top stories on Africa. Good morning. Medics at 2 hospitals in Barcelona operated on 2 teenagers with congenital heart disorders for the first time with modernized robotic techniques. For the first time in Spain, robotics has been used in heart surgery on children and teenagers. On Monday, doctors from 2 different hospitals in Barcelona operated using this state-of-the-art technique on 2 adolescents who suffer from congenital heart disease. Up until now, this type of procedure on young patients involved open heart surgery, which means the surgeon has to make an incision in the subject's chest. Robotic heart surgery, on the other hand, is less invasive, reducing post-operational recovery time and aesthetic impact.
swinging over to South Africa, South Africa's health regulator said on Saturday it is recalling batches of Johnson & Johnson children's cough syrup after detection of high level of diethylene glycol. The affected batches were sold in South Africa, Eswatini, Rwanda, Kenya, Tanzania, and Nigeria, the statement added. The recall follows a report by the regulator's Nigerian counterpart on Wednesday, which first detected the toxins in a batch of Benylin pediatric syrup. Kenya and Nigeria have already issued recalls for the same syrup, which is used in the treatment of hay fever and other allergic conditions affecting the upper respiratory tract. Which owns the Benylin brand after a spin-off from J&J last year, said in a statement that it is conducting its own assessment and working with health authorities to determine a course of action. A review of our global safety database for the period between product release in May 2021 and up to 11th of April 2024 did not identify any serious adverse events for any batch of Benylin pediatric syrup, it said.
Now, Israeli airlines said operations were returning to normal on Sunday after an overnight attack by Iranian missiles and drones closed the airspace and led to flight cancellations. Israel reopened its airspace as of 7:30 a.m. on Sunday, adding that flight schedules from Tel Aviv were expected to be affected and travelers should check flight times before going to Ben Gurion International Airport. Flight carrier LI said it had resumed operations and was working to stabilize the flight schedule as soon as possible. Now, the airline had cancelled 15 flights to Europe, Dubai and Moscow scheduled for Sunday, while flights that had taken off from Bangkok and Phuket were forced to return.
Hundreds of demonstrators took part in a protest against the presence of foreign forces in Niger, including the armed forces of the United States, which has a military base in the north of the country. The demonstrators gathered in the center of the capital city of Niamey at the call of civil society organizations close to Niger's ruling military junta, whose member took part in the demonstration. The demo comes as the West African nation pulls away from close cooperation with the United States in counter-terrorism efforts, turning instead to Russia for security. It may be seen as a further step in urging Washington to withdraw from Niger, where Russian troops arrived last week to provide security for Niger's ruling junta. Niger's ruling military council, known as the CNSP, has yet to order American troops out, U.S. officials have said. But the arrival of Russian forces makes it complicated for the U.S. forces, along with diplomatic and civilian personnel, to remain in the country. It also throws into doubt the future of joint Niger-U.S. counterinsurgency operations. Until recently, Washington considered Niger a key partner and ally in a region swept by coups in recent years.
Now, charities supporting asylum seekers plan to launch legal challenges as quickly as possible against moving people to Rwanda after a new law passes in the coming days. Legislation to declare Rwanda safe is likely to pass its final parliamentary hurdles this week. Downing Street hopes this will allow the first flights to take off before the end of spring. Ministers hope to strike similar removal deals with other countries, but charity Care for Calais, which helped block flights to Rwanda last year, said it had recruited hundreds of volunteers to identify people who are said to be removed to the East Central African country. It intends to offer them legal support to try and keep them in the UK. Those have been our top stories on Africa Good Morning. After the break, we're going to be talking about the new injectable HIV drug in Zimbabwe, as well as several questions that Finance Minister Mthuli Ncube has to answer to. All right, talent. Before we get into the stories with regards to Finance Minister Mthuli Ncube, we would first like to talk about the injectable HIV drug in Zimbabwe. Wamkase talent.
Tamuka Edukana Mamkao, Mamkase Africa.
Tamuka Hedu, please get straight into your stories.
So Zimbabwe has introduced the cabotegravir long-acting injectable HIV pre-exposure prophylaxis drug to aid to the HIV prevention regime in the country. The cabotegravir long-acting injectable pill becomes the first of its kind in Zimbabwe, but in Africa, in Southern Africa to be precise, Zimbabwe is the third country to introduce such a drug. So the drug is an ARV drug designed to suppress any infection as it occurs, is for HIV negative people who have a high risk of becoming infected with HIV. So the drug is taken for 3 months. You have to take the first injection, and then you have to take another one in 3 months' time. So the drug is for people who are HIV negative and who have a higher risk of contracting HIV. So usually people who think that their partners are infected or who know that they are infected and they want to be intimate with them, they can have that injection. So it becomes the third, HIV prevention regime in country after the Diparivan ring, and also the PrEP, which already we have the pre-exposure prophylaxis pill. So this one becomes the third one. So Zimbabwe right now has started the rolling out of of the injection. And you find out that right now they're just doing it to a small group of people because they want to see how people are going to react to the drug, if there are going to be any side effects to the drug. So they're just rolling it out to a number of people. So right now it is under study, and then the Minister of Health has said that after they're done with the study and after they have concluded, after they have figured out the side effects, after they figure out how people are reacting to the drug, to the injection rather, they're going to be rolling it out nationwide. So right now it's just in small groups of people. Right now it's in 3 provinces, that is in Harare, Bulawayo, and Masvingo. But as the study goes on, they will be rolling it out to the rest of the nation.
Now, getting into your next story, legislators have pleaded with Finance Minister Mthuli Ncube to urgently address accommodation challenges in Harare amid revelations that some are sleeping in their cars after attending Parliament business. What's going on there?
Yes, so legislators, members of parliament, they have pleaded with the finance minister Mthuli Ncube, saying that some of them are having to sleep in their cars after attending parliament business in Harare. So they've said that we have to have accommodation, or rather, the minister should give the legislators money for them to book their accommodation. The legislators also are saying that the accommodation, we are usually told that accommodation is available, but when we get to Harare for parliament business, we are then told that the ministry, or rather the Minister of Finance, is not paid for the accommodation, forcing most of the members of parliament to sleep in their cars, after conducting parliament business. Well, apparently this is not the first time that the parliamentarians have said that they are sleeping in their cars. You find out that over the past a few years they've been complaining that they are not getting accommodation allowances. They're having to spend their own monies for accommodation, and some are having in their cars. The last time that this happened, the president, Emerson Mnangagwa, stepped in and told the finance ministry to make sure that they provide whatever the parliamentarians need when they come for parliament business in Harare. You find out that most parliament business, or rather the parliament in Zimbabwe, is in Harare. So for those members of parliament in Bulawayo, down there, which is far away from Harare, they have to come to Harare every Wednesday, or rather on Tuesday, for parliament. So they have to have accommodation, but they are saying that they are not being provided accommodation, and it is now difficult for them to come to Harare for parliament. So we're just hoping that something is going to happen. Their needs are going to be catered for. Apparently, the minister has not said anything in connection with that, so we're just hoping that you respond
At some point.
soon.
Yes, I mean, what he has been saying, what he has been talking about is the ZiG, which is the Zimbabwean currency, which is to be introduced at the end of this month. However, it was announced prior to that, 30 days away from the day that it actually gets introduced, which caused some trouble in transactions. And Mthuli Ncube has been asking for patience.
Yes. Finance Minister Mthuli Ncube has pleaded for patience with the recently introduced Zimbabwean gold ZiG, and said that the Zimbabweans, the citizens, should have patience with the new currency as they are transitioning right now. He said that Zimbabweans should be patient with him and with the governor and with the ministry as they try to transition and to bring on board the new currency. Apparently, for the past since the announcement of the ZiG, there have been chaos in Zimbabwe when it comes to transactions. You find out that most companies, most businesses right now, they don't want the RTGS, the Zimbabwean dollar, which we were using before. They now want the ZiG. But you also note that it has not been in circulation uh, the Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe said that they are going to be conducting campaigns to educate people on the new currency. So they are not rolling it out right now. It will come into circulation on April 30. So right now there's a lot of chaos as people, as businesses are not accepting the Zimbabwean dollar. They now want the ZiG, but it is not in circulation at the moment. So the ministry and the governor of Reserve Bank of Zimbabwe, they have said that Zimbabweans should be patient and accept the new currency that is coming in on April 30. And right now, they should accept the Zimbabwean dollar. But people are not having that. They are saying that, what do you want us to do with the money that you guys don't want anymore? Where do you want us to put it? So there's
Yeah.
just chaos. And you also find out that most supermarkets, they've actually changed their currency from Zim dollar to the Zimbabwe gold.
Zimbabwe gold, my goodness. Well, in the words of legendary Zimbabwean musician Oliver Mtukudzi Todini, what shall we do? Thank you for bringing us the top stories from Zimbabwe.
You're welcome, and thank you very much for having me.
All right, now let's take a look at our weather predictions before we return with economic news.
Getting into our economic news stories, Mozambique clients of electronic currency will now have transaction limits. The decision establishes transactional limits applicable to electronic currency institutions and requires institutions to classify their clients based on risk assessment. Clients of Mozambican electronic currency institutions, which operate through mobile telecommunications operators, will have transaction limits starting at the end of the month for the prevention and combating of money laundering and terrorism.
Ghana is confident it will at some point reach a deal with international bondholders to restructure $13 billion of debt, its finance minister said on Saturday as the International Monetary Fund announced a successful loan program review. The West African country has been overhauling its debt as it seeks a way out of its deepest economic crisis in a generation with the help of $3 billion IMF program. The fund said the new staff-level agreement on the second review of the program would unlock $360 million tranche once Ghana provides financing assurance linked to a January deal to restructure $5.4 billion of loans with official creditors.
All right, those have been our economic news stories. Let's head over to the economic indicators before we return with the sport. All right, tough day at the office for both Arsenal and Liverpool. Arsenal actually just staying second where it was at the beginning of the weekend, but they had the opportunity, we had the opportunity to go to the top of the table yesterday and we failed to do so, as Liverpool also failed to do so. So Manchester City back in a place where they usually find themselves very comfortable. Here's Ari Hojado with that story and more.
Yes, morning, Ashwin. Yes, indeed. That's one of the stories, big stories on the Monday. It's the day the Premier League title turned. And the big winners, as you said, Manchester City. All three of the top contenders at home games. And Manchester City played first. They won comfortably 5-1 against Luton Town. But then it was the other two that stumbled. And it was Liverpool that lost first. They lost to Crystal Palace 1-0. And then it was Arsenal that lost to Aston Villa 2-0. So that is a frustrating day for Liverpool and Arsenal, both actually architects of their own downfall. That was with the desperately poor performances at home. So it is now Manchester City taking the initiative. The log at the moment, Manchester City 73 points. All have played 32 games, so they've got 73 points. Two behind them, Arsenal 71, Liverpool 71. And then Aston Villa with that win, they 63 points. They're in fourth position. Tottenham Hotspur fifth, 60 points. They lost to Newcastle 4-0, and Manchester United and Bournemouth played to a 2-2 draw. So Manchester City, they've got the initiative now with a few games to go in the English Premier League. On to golf news. It was the first major on the men's calendar. A big win for Scotty Scheffler of United States. He's the world number one. That's him, and he won his second title, a commanding performance by Scotty Scheffler at Augusta, closing with a 68. Total for the 4 rounds, -11, winning by 4 shots over Sweden's Ludwig Aberg. He was -7. And then other contenders, Colin Morikawa, Max Homa, they finished -4. And the defending champion John Rahm had a struggle. He was +9 for the 4 rounds. Rory McIlroy +4. And then Tiger Woods +16. And South African Erik van Rooyen +13 in tied 55th position. So well done, Scotty Scheffler, on his second title at Augusta. On to tennis news, Monte Carlo Masters. It's clay season. It's leading up to Roland Garros that will start in May. And that is on the right-hand side. There is Casper Ruud. He played in the final against Stefanos Tsitsipas, but it was Tsitsipas that won the game. That was when Casper Ruud had a brilliant win against Novak Djokovic, and that was in the semi-final. And it was also Stefanos Tsitsipas that beat Yannick Sinner in the semi-final. So the winner, Stefanos Tsitsipas, beating Casper Ruud 6-1, 6-4. And that is the Stefanos Tsitsipas there in action. He's the winner of the Monte Carlo Masters. And to close off quickly, some rugby scores. It was European Championship games. The Bulls went to Northampton in London, or in Britain, and they lost. That's action from that game. It is Northampton winning comfortably 59 points to 22. And then there it is Leinster in action against La Rochelle. It was a grudge game. It was a quarter-final, but a repeat of last year's final. Leinster beating La Rochelle 40 points to 13. And then the Sharks, they're flying the flag for South Africa. That was in the Challenge Cup of Europe. But they had a good one beating Edinburgh in the quarterfinal 36-30. And they will now play against Clermont. That is the 4th of May. That will be the semi-final, and they will play at home. So that's the sports news from the Monday. And the English Premier League not done. Ashwin, lots to play for still. You never know. Maybe one of the two teams, Arsenal and Liverpool, can come back and make that would be a great story to tell.
I mean, look, Ari, all we need is Manchester City to draw and we win. We don't even need them to lose because we have the goal difference for us. So for Arsenal, it is a slightly different position. And of course, there's Champions League happening right now. But the way I see it is we still do not know, because it's definitely not the City of last year and it's certainly not the same Arsenal or Liverpool for that matter. Thank you, Ari, for bringing us the stories.
Absolutely. Big pleasure. Have a great Monday and week, everyone. Bye-bye.
All right. So that's been our sport. We'll take a quick break before we return with the highlights. All right, let's get into the highlights from this broadcast. Spanish doctors perform first robotic heart surgery on teenagers. South Africa recalls J&J's cough syrup sold in 6 African nations. And Mozambique, clients of electronic currency will now have transaction limits.
And with that, we've come to the end of the broadcast. Thank you for joining us on this Monday morning. I am Glenn Rashipura.
And I am Ashwin Berry. Have a wonderful week. Swera Jakanaka.